The lack of meaning in life is a soul sickness, whose full extent and import our age has not yet begun to comprehend. For a long time, our world was full of meaning and magic. Gods crossed our paths, sending gifts and punishments. Evil witches and wizards casted their spells. Fate used to announce itself through dreams and visions. Humanity was surrounded by cosmic forces and hidden secrets. At a certain point, all of this changed. From then on, we lost contact with this wonderful world. Today, we live in a level-headed and mundane reality. Everything is predictable and stripped of its magical mysteries. How did it happen, and what does it mean? The profane man is the descendant of Homo religiosus, and he cannot wipe out his own history. That is, the behavior of his religious ancestors which has made him what he is today. A bulk of the human experience took place in prehistory. 99% of it occurred during the Paleolithic period alone. In prehistoric times, religious practices were many and varied. Most of it was probably based on the principles of shamanistic traditions. By interacting with the spirit world through altered states of consciousness, we tried to direct spirits into the physical world for healing, divination, and other ways of supernatural assistance. In ancient Greece, the conceptual framework evolved into a fully fledged mythology. Here, people derived their accounts of the origin and nature of the universe. A great pantheon of gods are shaping both otherworldly matters and human affairs. Myths of heroes and villains provide a narrative for human action and values. Finally, in the Roman Empire, early Christianity started to spread through individual missions and, increasingly, also by coercion from governments and military leaders. The Christian worldview is articulated within the narratives that make up the biblical corpus. For centuries, these writings served as a source of meaning and value. The Bible provided a roadmap to both the earthly world and the world beyond, namely heaven and hell. Just as other religious texts, it is full of fantastical tales, non-human beings, and puzzling mysteries. So as long as there's consciousness, human beings live firmly embedded within sacred space. Although what this meant changed across time, one conviction remained undisputed. We live within a cosmos rife with magical mysteries and alien actors. But all that was soon to change. It should be said at once that the completely profane world, the wholly desacralized cosmos, is a recent discovery in the history of the human spirit. For the non-religious man of the modern age, the cosmos has become opaque, inert, mute. It transmits no message, it holds no cipher. Warm year 1543. Nicholas Copernicus observes the heavenly spheres and calculates planetary movements and positions. He realizes that the cosmological order in the Bible is a lie. The Earth is not the center of the universe, but the Sun is. The scientific revolution had begun. The cosmological landscape changed drastically within the next centuries. Under the influence of people like Francis Bacon and René Descartes, new secular approaches were born. Rationalism and empiricism gained a foothold and started to spread despite great resistance from the Christian world. Slowly, this desacralization of knowledge gains momentum. New branches of science start to blossom. Biology and medicine are making groundbreaking discoveries. Under the spell of the scientific method, the murky backwaters of alchemy turn into proper chemistry. Physical calculus spawns theories of optics, electricity, and mechanics. The latest scientific discoveries feed back into the development of ever more refined instruments for scientific investigation. At a staggering pace, our magical reality gets disenchanted by empirical observation and rational reasoning. Now, humanity inhabits a cosmos that is infinitely large and devoid of meaning. There's no design of God and no special place for man. We no longer participate in a great narrative full of alien forces, gods, magic, and heroes. A hard truth emerges. Every moment of our life is nothing but a trivial breath within the history of the universe, in an ordinary galaxy on an insignificant planet. God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods, simply to appear worthy of it? Today, most of us consider this desacralization of our world as a progressive and necessary development. Now, as we disembarrass ourselves from the chains of religious dogma, we, eventually, are free and educated. No outdated notions hold us back, no superstitious beliefs obscure matters of the real world. And to some extent, this is true. At no time in history have we been as comprehensively autonomous and educated as we are today. All knowledge of humanity can be accessed with just a few clicks. Authority can be challenged without risking inhumane punishment. Today, we live in a paradise guided by free speech, individual autonomy, and reason. Or do we? At least this is what you would expect, wouldn't you? Given that scientific rationality disabused us from the misconceptions of history, we should now live in undimmed freedom. Clearly, the shadow cast by the atrocities of the 20th century renders such claims preposterous. One person that seemed to have expected this was Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche felt the agony, the suffering and the misery of a godless world so intensely at a time when others were yet blind to its tremendous consequence, that he was able to experience in advance the fate of a coming generation. Instead of entering a rational paradise, we found ourselves in rational hell. Ideology filled the void of sacred absence. Although free of religious dogma, we now fell prey to political beliefs and rational delusions. We cut ourselves from our religious origins and mistook humanity for a blank slate to be filled with ill-conceived utopianism and political ideology. Revolution followed revolution, each a new attempt to fill the formerly religious space with new values and meaning. But now, as the catastrophes of the 20th century lie behind us, weren't we finally able to find an adequate replacement for our formerly sacralized world? Do we now, at last, inhabit the rational kingdom of modernity? Not really. In the 21st century, nihilism and meaninglessness are spreading further among the millennials and zoomers. An increasing number of people do not know what to do with their lives and what they are living for. They neither feel part of a great community, nor that they can participate in something meaningful. Many suffer under depression, social anxiety, and lack of vision. Some seek refuge in hedonistic pursuits and try to shut down their shallow outlook in an endless search for pleasure. Others try to compensate for the lack of spirituality within the plethora of obscure New Age ideas and practices. In the meantime, conspiracy theories are flourishing like mad, and political polarization peaks every day afresh. This certainly does not feel like the rational utopia we have been promised at the end of religious dogma and superstition. What is wrong with that expectation? The majority of men without religion still hold to pseudo-religions and degenerated mythologies. There is nothing surprising in this, for profane man is the descendant of Homo religiosus, and he cannot wipe out his own history. That is the behavior of his religious ancestors, which has made him what he is today. This is all the more true because a great part of existence is fed by impulses that come to him from the depth of his being, from the zone that has been called the unconscious. A purely rational man is an abstraction. He is never found in real life. The problem with rationality is that it cannot account for being. It is a useful tool, as is proven by the great achievements of modern science, but it is a terrible master, because being operates under different rules than the natural world. We need a shared narrative that provides us with values and guides our actions. Rationalism derives its power by eliminating value judgments in favor of objectivity. Thus, it can neither provide a narrative nor a value system, and therefore fails to make sense of human affairs. And yet, people expect secular rationality to lead them back into paradise. As a consequence, our world disintegrates. If your world disintegrates, you stop seeing anything in context, and it becomes puzzling, even frightening. Its sheer facticity then stands out, since it can no longer take its place in any world schema of other things and people that would give it meaning. Looking through the lens of rationality, human history becomes incomprehensible, our present a meaningless void and our future a technocratic nightmare. The unbalanced spread of rationalism is no trivial matter. It has dire consequences, and the 20th century gave us a foretaste of what is to come. People know and feel this problem with various degrees of clarity. Since the triumph of rationality, a plethora of counter-movements tried to re-enchant the desacralized world through many different approaches. The German Romantics tried to ground aesthetic experience within intense emotion and searched for magic in nature. At the same time, the decadent movement in France tried to re-enchant the world by elevating pleasure and art to guiding principles which supersede ordinary reality and nature. But it's not only the arts that set themselves to reclaim magic. Not much later, psychoanalysts re-enchanted the world with the discovery of the unconscious, and phenomenologists dissolved the irrational doctrine of the subject-object dualism. Even far away from the academic world, another compensatory for religious ideas started to establish itself among the general public: pop culture. Suddenly, pop and rock music started to dominate youth culture and provided a cultural space for the identification with transcendental movements. The engagement and collective ecstasy that was formerly provided by religious practices now were taken over by rock concerts and rave culture. Simultaneously, fictional universes drew people in all over the world, and video games provided adventures in alien places. So, what shall we do with all of this? Well, I guess there are three things. Firstly, we have to dispense with our rational arrogance and naivety. The place of religious ideas cannot be handed to the intellect and its children. It is a separate domain with its own function. As we cannot lack the fruits of the Enlightenment, we cannot ignore our irrational heritage. It is part of our history as well as our present. We should take this fact into account and educate ourselves without cynical reductionism. Secondly, we need to acknowledge the seriousness of the problem. We fell out of our metaphysical narrative and now have to deal with the consequences. If we don't conduct ourselves wisely, we fall prey to political ideology and ethical degeneration. It takes a great deal of caution and awareness to handle this rocky road. Thirdly, we need to find ways to reconnect with the religious truths that are at the bottom of our culture. If institutions are not doing the job, we have to do it ourselves. This is not part of the metaphysical argument about the existence of God. It is about the basic principles upon which our civilization rests. What do you think about current affairs of religion and spirituality? How serious is this problem and what can be done? Write your thoughts down into the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next week. Thanks for watching.